Hey guys, thanks for taking a few minutes to watch this video. This is the first one that I've released in quite a while in regards to HP tuners. Of course, right off the bat, I need to clarify that this video is my opinion and that I do not condone any form of piracy, which brings me to my next point. I'm still getting messages from people asking me to help them circumvent licensing. And not only will I not help you do that, but I'm adamant and I would really appreciate if you stop sending me messages requesting that. It is not something I will help you do, and it's gotten to the point I'm not even going to respond. I'm just going to block you, and that's for me and for you. The HP Tuners is actively seeking people who are circumventing licensing, okay? Please do not message me about this. I will not reply. I will not help you. There's no way around it, okay? Everything that I have done, though I may be a little thorn in their side right now, I have done 100% legally. I have not violated any copyright or DMCA, and I'm not at all affiliated with the software that's floating around that is assisting people in firmware downgrades, however it is that is happening, okay? I am not affiliated with, nor will I share any of that software. Now that we've got that out of the way, I get a lot of questions from people saying, how do I know if I need to downgrade? And what's the benefit? Well, the answer is, if you don't know if you need to downgrade or you don't know the benefits, the truth is you probably don't need it. And that's good. That's good for you. It's not affecting you. That's the best case scenario. You can continue using it as you always have, and that's fine. There's a lot of people who have been forced into an upgrade without warning that prevents them from using older versions of the software that had some capabilities that the new versions don't. The trouble with that is, not all of these people are in the US market. HP Tuners is, of course, trying to comply with emissions regulations, and they've removed some functionality from their software, or so at least they say. They'll argue that they aren't allowing current firmware to work with older versions of firmware in order to adhere to compliance with emissions regulations and things like that. But if that were the truth, they wouldn't allow you to modify user-defined parameters, right? You can still delete an LP5. That's not a secret. It definitely can be done, and more importantly, they're marketing unlocking those ECUs so you can do such a thing with an A2L or similar. Just an address, a combination of addresses shared, in the forums and chats and Facebook pages, things like that. The information is there to circumvent emissions. It's always been that way. It's always going to be that way. So it's my opinion that they're using the emissions as an excuse to disable the ability to use older versions of their software that have been pirated, which I can understand to some degree. The problem is that they've negatively impacted some of their best customers, and that's not okay. Without warning, they've forced firmware updates that have prevented people from servicing their customers outside of the US or in markets where it was allowed. For instance, I'm not sure if you're familiar or not, but the majority of the military and DoD, they are all exempt from emissions. And providing retrofits, for instance, in Humvees, that's all outsourced. It goes through a bidding process where contractors can bid that retrofit. Okay, so there are companies out there that are retrofitting Humvees and other heavy equipment for Homeland Security, DoD, the military. And they've used HP tuners in the past, or EFI Live. Regardless, the point is there are instances where this is legal to use this, and HP Tuners has forced a firmware update removing most of that, if not all of that functionality without permission, and that's not okay. So if you'd like to check and see what firmware you have, you can open your VCM Suite scanner and click on, it's a little cloud button with the letter I for information. Click on that, and then there will be one more button to press in the new window that pops open, and it's going to read out all of the information from your interface. It's going to tell you what firmware version you have. It's going to tell you what VIN numbers you've licensed, all of that sort of thing. And the firmware that will allow you to go back to all of these old versions of VCM Suite would be 120, and the firmware that they've forced to upgrade that prevents all of that is 121. So if you'd like to figure out what firmware you have, that would be the best way to do it. Now, it's right around 4.0 and change revision of VCM Suite that they started forcing firmware updates. So if you've not gone beyond 4.0, you shouldn't have any problem. You should still be on 120 firmware. If you've gone beyond that, there's a good chance that you're on 121 and you can no longer use the older versions of VCM Suite. So what am I doing? Well, a couple of different things. One, they very conveniently allowed some of those firmware, again, in my opinion, conveniently allowed some of those firmware updates to brick a lot of the original interfaces. Now, why is that convenient? Well, it's convenient because the original interfaces have a firmware that allow people to use those older pirated versions of VCM Suite. So it's obviously in HP Tuner's best interest to get as many of those out of circulation as possible. In the past, there has occasionally been times where they'd release a firmware update or software update and it would suddenly cause problems, it wouldn't work properly, and almost immediately it would get pulled. They'd push out some kind of release on their website and in the forums saying, don't update, we pulled this update, we're going to get it fixed, we'll let you know when it's resolved. And if it did cause a problem and if it did brick one of the interfaces, you could send it in and you could have it fixed, which they are still saying you can do, but that's not what's happening. Every single person that I've talked to in the last 6 months that has had a failed update, okay, and sent an interface into HP Tuners, every single one of them has been told, sorry, we can't fix it, but we'll do you the courtesy of transferring your licenses onto this new interface if you pay to upgrade, which is not a courtesy. They are lying to the consumer. They are lying about being able to fix this. If I can fix these interfaces, they certainly can fix them. There's nothing physically wrong with these devices. They're not blowing a security bit. They're not doing any of that. They're bricking. They are able to be repaired. HP Tuners is not fixing them. It's as simple as that. While I may have some opinions about why I think they're doing this, I can speculate all I want. The truth of the matter is, when it comes to insisting that they can't repair these devices, it's a lie. There's no way around it. It is a lie. That is not an opinion. That is a fact. These devices can be repaired. They are very conveniently insisting that they can't, but that's not true. So please, if that is not something that you want, do not believe that if you send them an MPVI-1, they are going to just fix it and return it to you. That's not what's going to happen. Jump in the HP Tuners Facebook page, in the forums, in Sloppy, any LSX page, and you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. no one is getting MPVI-1s back. So if you're having trouble with that MPVI-1, do not send it to them. You won't get it back. And if you need the functionality that that provides and the new interface doesn't provide, you're going to lose that forever. They will not return the interface to you, which seems crazy because you would think if you said, okay, well, if you can't fix it, please return my property, they would do that. But that doesn't seem to be what's happening. Now, again, that part is an opinion. I have not heard of anyone successfully getting back their interface after being told that it couldn't be repaired. If I'm wrong here, feel free to comment down below, let me know. But to my knowledge, not one of them has been returned from sending it in for repair. Something that they did for years, mind you. For years, if there was a failed update or there was a problem where you lost power or connectivity or something during a firmware update and it bricked the device, they would repair it and send it back to you. That's not what's happening anymore. They are not returning them. So, what are the fixes? Well, I have heard that there's some software floating around that allows you to downgrade some firmware. It's my understanding that it doesn't work if the device is bricked, but I can't say for sure because, again, I have no affiliation with that whatsoever. I want to make clear that my effort to repair these devices is not to, in any way, shape, or form, circumvent licensing or interfere with HP Tuner's business. It's simply to repair devices that you own and have the right to continue using, and they have refused to repair them. Okay, so this is no different than any other electronic device that is outside of warranty. Say you've got a 4-year-old MacBook or something, and it's out of warranty. You're not going to send it to Mac because they're going to tell you have to buy a brand new laptop. You're going to send it to somebody like Louis Rossmann, and he's going to fix it for a fraction of the cost of a new laptop and send it back to you. Because they can be fixed. The problem is the company, the supplier, doesn't want to fix them. They want you to pay for a new device that is more secure than the old one. But that may negatively impact your business. And that's why I've come up with a solution to repair these. Unlike the software that's floating around, I have not reverse engineered any of their software, software set that's installed on the computer. I've not reverse engineered any of the firmware that's on the device. I'm using a solution that is completely outside of that and is not a violation of DMCA or copyright. I'm confident in that, and I'm confident that that is why I haven't yet been, slapped with literally a slap suit. I know that the method in which I'm using to repair these is something that would hold up, and I'm confident enough in that to obviously record these videos. So, going forward, if you want to retain the hardware that you paid for, that you have the right to use, provided that you are adhering to the law, and you end up with a device that is bricked or no longer working, feel free to contact me. However, I will not respond if your desire, your request is to circumvent licensing. I won't do that. If you want to fix a device that has been bricked remotely because you used software in the past that circumvented licensing, I will not help you with that either. Okay? This is solely to downgrade firmware and to repair devices that have been bricked as a result of a firmware update that they allowed to continue bricking devices, again, in my opinion, very conveniently. They didn't pull that update that bricked so many of them, in my opinion, because they wanted to get them off of circulation. They wanted to bring those in and sell you back a device that is not compatible with pirated software. That is, unfortunately, the cause and what has affected so many people who are using this for legitimate business, and it's quite unacceptable in my opinion. You may feel differently, and that's okay, but for the time being, this is the only option for people who have potentially tens of thousands of dollars worth of VIN licenses on some of these interfaces that are suddenly bricked, and they're being forced to upgrade. But then if they upgrade, they're no longer able to service some of their customers that have done diesel retrofits in marine applications, for instance. That's one thing that I'm very familiar with and used personally. And part of the reason that I set out to do this was because I no longer could service my customers in a different country, outside of this market, outside of emissions regulations, and more importantly, was doing that with HP tuners having full knowledge. I reached out to my contacts there when this changed and said, you know that I'm not breaking the law. You forced a firmware update. I need this rolled back in order to continue servicing my customers. Their response was, there will be no exceptions. So if that's the stance that they want to take, I would encourage you all to downgrade the firmware if you need on your devices. If they've been bricked, send them over to me so I can fix them for you. And again, fix them. This is not altering in any way. This is not picking apart their firmware. Nothing. This is just fixing them using a method that is entirely legal. You will only get back what you already had, nothing more. I need to emphasize that because I am tired of getting messages asking me to help people circumvent licensing. I can't stress this enough, guys. Please do not put me in that position. I want to help in a legal manner. I cannot help you circumvent licenses or fix interfaces if I know that they've been bricked as a result of using it with pirated software. I can't help you. If you have a device that's been bricked as a result of a failed update, or if you have a device that has 121 firmware on it, and that has put you in a position where you cannot serve your customers on the licenses that you've already purchased, then feel free to get a hold of me and I'll help you as best I can. So thanks. Have a good day, guys, and stay safe.